I'm putting on my financial historian hat today because we need to unpack something truly chilling, a very real precedent of state-mandated wealth confiscation. In 1933, the President of the United States did something that sounds absolutely impossible today. He made it a federal crime for American citizens to own gold. By forcing everyone to hand over their coins and bullion in exchange for paper money, the government seized total control of the nation's physical wealth in a single, devastating stroke.
Okay, so picture this. You wake up one morning and the ultimate safe haven asset, the wealth you've honestly earned, saved, and locked away, is suddenly a federal crime to own. You're holding onto this physical piece of metal, this symbol of your literal hard work, and suddenly the government tells you that you have 3 weeks to surrender it or you're facing absolute financial ruin. It sounds exactly like the plot of a dystopian novel, right? But this actually happened right here in the United States.
To really wrap our heads around how a government could just seize total control of private wealth, we have to rewind to the desperate mathematical nightmare that was 1933. The Great Depression was absolutely ravaging the country. Thousands of banks had already collapsed. The government desperately needed to print more money to stimulate the economy. But they were trapped by the gold standard, which required a 40% gold backing for all circulating paper currency. So on April 5th, Franklin Delano Roosevelt dropped an absolute bombshell. He signed Executive Order 6102. It threatened everyday citizens with a crushing $10,000 fine, which, by the way, is a massive fortune in today's money, or up to 10 years in federal prison. And all of that just for holding on to honest money. You were forced to hand your gold over to the Federal Reserve for a paper payout of exactly $20.67 per ounce.
And this wasn't some slow, gradual shift. It was a lightning-fast sequence of events. First, they hit us with the bank holiday just to freeze the bleeding. Boom. Right after that, the confiscation order. And finally, 9 months later, the government wrapped the whole thing up in a neat little bow by passing the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. They literally rewrote the rules of value and officially lifted the constraints that had kept the state from firing up the money printers. But here is the absolute kicker. Think about this staggering number, 69%. Once the government had successfully hoovered up the public's gold, they just turned around and instantly raised the official price of gold from $20.67 to $35 an ounce. That is a 69% immediate increase in the price of gold. What does that actually mean? It means the state instantly evaporated roughly 40% of the public's purchasing power. If you were a good citizen, followed the law, and took their paper money, you lost nearly half your wealth overnight.
Consider a guy named Frederick Barber Campbell. He was a wealthy New York lawyer, and he had 27 bars of gold. That's about 5,000 ounces just sitting in a Chase National Bank vault. Well, he refused to surrender it, sued the government, and they actually criminally indicted him. In the end, the government seized his gold anyway. It's a perfect historical proof that no one, absolutely no one, not even the wealthy elite, was immune from being forcibly transformed into an unsecured creditor of the state.
Part 2, the Petrodollar system unravels. Because the architecture of money, it didn't just stop mutating in the 1930s. As global dynamics shifted, the state's method of financial control evolved into a much more complex global web.
Jump forward to 1971, and the game had completely changed. Foreign nations were calling America's bluff and draining U.S. gold reserves, so President Nixon entirely severed the dollar's link to gold. But to keep demand high for a currency now backed by literally nothing but a promise, the U.S. engineered the petrodollar system in 1974. They essentially ensured that global oil had to be bought in U.S. dollars in exchange for American military protection. Fast forward to today, as U.S. debt closes in on a terrifying $40 trillion, maintaining that artificial global demand for the dollar is absolutely critical to keeping the whole house of cards standing. And you can really see the geopolitical muscle behind this when you look at the petrodollar war theory. Analysts point out a very clear, very grim historical pattern. Look at the regimes that have tried to bypass dollar-centric settlement rails. Iraq moving to the euro, Libya proposing a gold dinar, or, more recently, Iran trying to bypass the dollar for the Chinese yuan. In every case, they have consistently met with rapid, severe military interventions to restore that dollar dominance.
Part 3, the silent currency war. Fast forward to today. Facing the intense weaponization of the dollar clearing system through sanctions, foreign nations are definitely no longer sitting on their hands.
1,000 metric tons. Think about that enormous figure. The very central banks that are currently printing fiat currencies out of thin air are aggressively hoarding massive amounts of physical gold, over 1,000 metric tons annually for the last 3 years.
They are stockpiling the exact same shiny metal the US outlawed for its own citizens back in 1933. Why? Because they are hedging against the very fiat systems they control. They are desperate for an asset with zero jurisdictional risk.
And this silent war is totally global right now. Major economies are deploying central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, to lock in their monetary independence. You've got China using the ECNY to bypass SWIFT entirely. The European Union is designing a digital euro to break their reliance on US platforms like Visa. India is pushing a digital rupee to help integrate BRICS nations, and Ghana is even exploring a sovereign gold-backed stablecoin. They're all actively building roads that completely bypass American financial channels.
But what's fascinating is that it isn't just a top-down thing. There's a real retail rebellion happening on the ground. In places like Ghana, around 3 million people, which is 17% of their adult population, just up and adopted decentralized digital dollars like USDT simply to survive rampant local inflation. And how did the state react? To preserve its monopoly on money, the government literally issued a 48-hour ultimatum in 2026 banning stablecoin billboards. It is a direct, modern clash between sovereign government mandates and everyday people just trying to protect their life savings.
Part 4, the digital confiscation threat. And this is where history meets modern tech. As governments worldwide feel the squeeze of massive debt and capital flight, they're turning to advanced digital tools to maintain their grip. This is the ultimate modern threat. Back in 1933, FDR literally had to send physical treasury agents, knocking on doors, hauling heavy metal out of bank vaults. It was messy, it was difficult, and it took time. Today, with the advent of new FinCEN regulations and highly programmable central bank digital currencies, governments can monitor, freeze, decay, or straight up confiscate your digital wealth with a single keystroke. The technology of confiscation has received a massive upgrade. When you start pulling the thread on this expanding financial dragnet, the tools they have are staggering. Sovereign states are leveraging incredibly powerful new systems. Ethiopia, for instance, is implementing retroactive civil asset forfeiture, where the burden of proof actually falls on the citizen, not the state. Here in the US, FinCEN is deeply expanding surveillance over private investment advisors. On top of that, we are seeing the integration of military-grade AI, like Palantir Maven and target ranking algorithms, crossing right over into domestic profiling. It all points to this highly integrated framework where your very access to finance is algorithmically managed.
You know, JP Morgan hit the nail on the head way back in 1912 when he famously said, "Gold is money. Everything else is credit." The fact that central banks today are desperately hoarding gold while simultaneously forcing digital tracking systems onto the public, it proves that fiat paper and programmable central bank digits are basically just experiments. And if history tells us anything, it's that these experiments eventually fail. When trust in a state's credit evaporates, it is the physical, decentralized, and independent assets that actually survive.
Part 5, defending your digital wealth. So, what do we do with all this? If we really are staring down the barrel of an impending economic reset, you simply cannot rely on official state rhetoric to keep your assets safe. Well, how do you actually build an actionable defense strategy against all of this? Analysts highly suggest making a direct allocation to hard assets, like physical gold, ideally held in neutral jurisdictions. But even more critically, for our modern digital age, you need to diversify into decentralized crypto networks. We're talking about utilizing secure, self-custody crypto wallets, where you hold the keys. We're talking about implementing VPNs to actively mask your financial data traffic from surveillance. You have to take proactive steps to secure your assets outside traditional, easily compromised structures. I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. The government literally outlawed the ultimate safe haven asset right when the American people needed it the most back in 1933. What is honestly stopping them from criminalizing your decentralized crypto wallet today? When the next severe crisis inevitably hits and the state grows desperate for liquidity and total control, will you be prepared, or will you wait until they've already rewritten the rules of wealth all over again? Protect your digital assets, stay informed, and really think carefully about where your wealth truly lives.